thank you everybody for being here today and for committing the time to your practice and yourself and to all of us. Because I think all of us would agree that seeing other people on the screen, even though it's on the screen and in little boxes, is hugely supportive. Going into this talk, I want to use a line from Marlon Brando. Back when in my advertising days, when I was working on Apple Computer, I was a creative director on the Apple account. We got a call from Marlon Brando saying, I would like to talk to you about an advertising idea. And I mean, how do you say no to Marlon Brando, right? So we went, I and one account guy went up the mountain in Mulholland to his home. And the first thing, we got through the gate and 3 big guard dogs were lunging at the car. So we just sat there waiting until somebody came and rescued us. But, we go into Marlon Brando's house and you're sitting there and I don't know about you, but I didn't really know how to sit on Marlon Brando's couch while waiting for him. So, kind of like, how do I do this? And then all of a sudden you hear the man padding down the hall. And he comes walking in and he sees us sitting there and he sits down on the couch across from us, from me. And I'm still kind of like this. And he just gets this big smile on his face. And he says, relax, have a pickle. and reaches out with a giant dill pickle. So you reach out and grab a dill pickle, and then you're like, okay, now what do I do? You take a big bite off of a dill pickle, and then kind of like leisurely lean back into the couch with Marlon Brando. So anyway, the point of this is you don't have to hold form for Zazen right now during this talk. Relax, and if you want to chomp on a big dill pickle, I'm not going to stop you. Welcome to the Dharma talk for our first Zazenkai of the year. And as Melissa pointed out, Prajna Heart Zen Center, I guess we've been going for 2.5 years or something like that. And we've had, different locations and incarnations and everything. And we've been going up to Yokoji but this is actually the first Zazenkai that we've produced as a sangha. Of course, many of us have produced Zazenkais elsewhere, but it was kind of funny when we looked at it and said, wow, this is the first, the inaugural Prajna Heart Zen Center Zazenkai. So thank you for being part of it. If you were here during service, you'll notice that in the dedication of the second service after identity of relative and absolute, we did something different. In the dedication, rather than doing the usual dedication to Shakyamuni Buddha and all these dudes, all these men, which are always talked about and revered in Zen practice, we acknowledged and chanted the full lineage of all the women ancestors of Zen. And if you were there, you know that that list went on and on and on. And I think I pronounced most of their names right, though I think it bounced between Chinese, Korean, and Japanese. And, I barely speak English, but yeah, Lori's counting. But anyway, there's a very specific reason for that choice this morning, or a few reasons. First of all, why not? 61. I mean, 61 names. Why not? I mean, look at all the women on the screen. The world is made of women just as much as it's made of men. And just because history is told a certain way, that doesn't make it accurate. Some of you that were in book club I think it was the 3rd book we did was Zen Women. Really a wonderful book, starts out a little academic, raised a lot of issues for us because it's written from a feminist point of view. And I know some of the men, including me at times, were challenged by that. Like, well, wait a minute, I'm not an asshole. Maybe they were, but I'm not, and then of course you have to look at that and go, well, maybe, I don't know. But great book. And so as I was chanting the names this morning, it brought up some of the stories in that book. It's a really nice book if you get a chance to look at it. Maizumi Roshi, who came over from Japan and established Zen Mountain Center, not Zen Mountains, well, he did do that too. ZCLA in downtown Los Angeles, and then Zen Mountain Center, Yokoji, is the originator of our lineage here in America. And I think I've told this story before, but I was in an Uber not too long ago, and this little Japanese woman was the driver. And she was taking me up to the Self-Realization Fellowship, where I was doing some work with their community on outreach. But so she asked me whether I was a follower of Yogananda, and I said, no, I'm actually a Zen practitioner. And she started asking questions and about, who is the founder of your lineage? And I said, Maizumi Roshi. And she said, she was a woman? Because Maizumi took his name from his mother. And that's his mother. That's Maizumi and his mother. And this is not typical. But, whenever you hear somebody talk about Maizumi Roshi, just know that Maizumi is actually a woman's name. To where this, Japanese driver was like, wait, the founder of your lineage was a woman. So this runs deep in our lineage as well. And it's not always manifested well. I mean, I think some of the women who have been around for a while could say, well, wait a minute, there's still a lot of guys and, what's going on. But it's our intention that this practice in Prajna Heart Zen Center it is balanced. And in that dedication, it talks about bringing our feminine energy and perspective, all of ours, whether we're man, woman, gender nonconforming, whatever, however we identify, that we acknowledge and bring that feminine spirit in. And the final reason is that Deanne, who is sitting here on the screen with us this morning all day in Zazenkai, Deanne Shinzan, is entering head trainee position at Yokoji for 2 months, starting on, I think, April 4th, or is your entering ceremony on the 3rd? But anyway, April 3rd or 4th. Deanne, do you want to just say hi so people can hear your voice? And she bowed, she's muted. Anyway.
Hello.
Hi.
This is Shinzan, joyful and terrified.
Joyful and terrified. Being head trainee for 2 months, she's going to go up to the mountain. She'll be living there. She'll be responsible for guiding the training and operations of the entire monastery for 2 months. She won't be doing everything herself, but she's responsible for it. And it is a joyful celebration of her decades-long practice, and it's terrifying. We talked about this in an interview a little bit. I've been there. It's like, what do I do? How am I going to do? So I just wanted to acknowledge and honor Deanne Shinzan and have you all know what she's up to, because she's doing it for us and with us. And I promised her all of our support in this time period leading up to her shuso and throughout it. So I just ask you all to hold that and her in both your prajna and your heart. That was a very long introduction to a koan. In the same spirit, case 10 out of the Book of Equanimity is Joshu sees through the old woman. This is a well-known koan. It also appears in the Mumonkan, the Gateless Gate. I think it's case 43 in the Mumonkan. I could be off, but you can look it up there. But I'm going to work with the version in the Book of Equanimity, case 10, Joshu sees through the old woman. And in all of these classic cases throughout the Zen literature, there aren't that many women that appear. But when they do appear, they play really critical roles. And I think if I could generalize, I'd characterize that role as the one that Lori plays when she calls me on my BS, right? It's like, really? Really? You know, whether it was on the mountain coming down from St. Francis when she said, you think you're more powerful than God? You think that you're in control of everyone and everything and the creator of everything, that level of getting slapped, or whether it's just I'm being a jerk in our relationship and she lets me know with a not so subtle look, you know, or whatever. But the role of women in this Zen literature is very powerful and yet not frequent. So I wanted to work with this case, and you'll see what I mean. The preface is, there is grasping and releasing. A wooden pole accompanies the body, able to kill or vivify. The scale's handle is held in hand. Dust, toil, demons, and heretics are utterly disposed of with a finger. The great earth, mountains, and rivers all become playthings. Tell me, what state of mind is this? The main case. This is the heart of the koan. Attention. There was an old woman on the road to Great Mountain, Taizan. Sometimes a monk would ask which way it was to Taizan, and she would reply, straight ahead. The monk would proceed a little, he'd take a few steps, and the old woman would say, a fine priest going on like that again. A monk related this to Joshu, and Joshu said, wait, I'll examine her for you. Joshu went and also asked the same question, and the old woman also gave the same answer. The next day, Joshu ascended the high seat and said, for your sakes, I have seen that old woman through and through. That's what he says. That's the end of it. The appreciatory verse, we'll go back over some of this. He's gotten old, become the essence, does not transmit in error. Old Buddha Joshu succeeded Nansen. By a design on its shell, the withered turtle lost his life. Even the steed's chariot and wind chaser are encumbered by halter and bridle. Grandma's Zen seen through and through, told to people it's not worth a cent. You know, poetry is poetry. And you know, there's a lot to pull out of poetry, but let's really start with the main case. Deanne, by the way, is a writer and a writing instructor, so we hope at some point to have her do a workshop with us all. That'll be fun, so we'll let you know if we convince her to do so. There was an old woman on the road to Great Mountain Taizan. Okay, and sometimes a monk would ask which way it was to Taizan. Now, so there's actually a mountain, Taizan, and so on one hand, this is on the road to the mountain, and which way is it? Okay, what is another way to to think of the great mountain or a taizan. How do I find my way to realization? Where is enlightenment? How do I get there? Now, her instruction is pretty straightforward. Literally, she says, go straight ahead. In some translations, it's go straight on. Go straight ahead. And then you're the monk. You've gotten your directions. You start taking a few steps. And all of a sudden, she says, almost derisively, a fine monk like you going on like that again. Now, what's that about? I mean, you just said go straight ahead. Now you're ridiculing me for it. And in this particular instance, we don't really know whether the monk continued on or turned back. One would presume that he continued on. But what does he do next? He comes back home to the monastery and tells Joshu, the teacher, all about this. I was on my way to Taizan. You can almost imagine, right? Here I am on the way to Taizan, and there's this woman on the side of the road. And I ask her which way to go, and she says, go straight ahead. And then, I take a few steps, and she's like, ha, a fine monk like you going on like that again? Like, who is this? How dare she? How dare she? I'm the monk. I'm on the road to Taizan enlightenment. Who is this old woman? Now, when you're working on koans, or if you're just listening in a Dharma talk or reading them, what you always want to do is put yourself in the different roles to try to really grok what's going on. So now we switch over to Joshu. So you're the teacher, Joshu, great master Joshu, and here's one of your monks going, and you can almost imagine him smiling and going, okay, hang on, I'll go see. Now, some of this we know through history, and some we can just glean or divine, but that's one of the great tricks in our practice, is to always bring the practice forward, always bring it into our lives, into this time, and to find the resonance now. So in looking at this, I can see Joshu going, kind of with a smile, look at my monk who just got hooked by this old woman, but then also wanting to go meet her and find out whether she just happened to say the right thing to hook him, or whether she truly, is a Buddha or a Bodhisattva, an awakened one, helping along the way. So what we do know is that Joshu went on the road to Taizan, and he went in his regular monk's robes. So he didn't wear the great master robes or any of the gear. So he kind of went almost in disguise, right? Like just another monk. And so he finds the old woman and he says, which is the way to Taizan? And she says, go straight ahead. And he takes a few steps and she says, a fine monk like you going on like this again. And then as we're told in this, he comes back and he ascends the high seat, which is, the platform at the front of the Zendo when you're going to teach, and says, for your sakes, I have seen the old woman through and through. Now you're one of the monks in the audience. What do you mean? What does that mean? Is she real? Is she not real? Should I listen to her? Should I not listen to her? Is she an unawakened, ignorant one that I can ignore? Is she a teacher that I need to pay attention to? And Joshu does not give that away. This is one other wonderful things about Zen. It doesn't always feel wonderful, but how it puts you on the point, puts you on top of that 100-foot pole and says, the job is to step off, but it doesn't necessarily tell you how. And that's what Joshu's doing with his monks. I've seen through her through and through. Well, but what did you see? I've seen through her through and through. Now, notably, when he did go to see her, she gave exactly the same answer to exactly the same question. Do you think that she did not recognize Joshu, the great master of the region? Yeah, chances are she knew exactly who she was dealing with. And chances are she knew why he was there. And she gave exactly the same answer. And he walked on, and then she gave exactly the same instruction. Now, again, we don't know what happened next, but I imagine, and Roshi and I have talked about this as well, imagine the two of them have just breaking down in laughter, like church giggles. Like, okay, got it, got you, let's have some tea. An acknowledgement by two masters, a connection between two masters. Here I am playing monk, here you are playing teacher. Yes, I'm a teacher. Yes, you're a teacher. And, there's precedent for this. Gutai, there's another famous koan. Gutai's one finger whenever he was asked, what is Buddha? What is enlightenment? He would just raise one finger. And he did that his entire life. I've got to come up with a trick like that because it would be much easier, Any of you ask a question, I just go like, and then, that's it. I just do that the rest of my life, right? But there are different teachers that have different devices that they find to be effective, and they stick with it. And this old woman did not vary. What did she do? She went straight ahead. She followed her own instruction. So I like to think of Joshu and this woman, having a cup of tea and just spending some time together. And then looking at the Garmin and going, I better get back, to see what these monks are up to. And what about her instruction? And how does it relate to our practice and anything we might be seeking? Why are we on the cushion for so many hours today? Where is that great awakening? Well, go straight ahead. So there's wisdom in that, right? Keep going. Take another step. Deanne, at some point in the 2 months, you'll be going, how do I do another minute of this? How do I do another hour of this? How do I do another day of it? How do I do the next 3 weeks? And you go straight ahead. You take another step. In the parlance of ultra running, where we run 100 miles at a time, it's, one step at a time. When you're completely broken down and don't know what to do, just move your foot. Just move your foot. Melanie, right? Just take another step. Keep that intention and conviction firm and take another step. Now, when she asks the question, it's somewhat of a question, right? A fine monk like you going on like that again. Okay, in our tradition, this comes up again and again and again. Just when you think you've got it, you get hauled up short. Wait a minute, you just told me to go ahead, and now you're saying that's the wrong thing to do? At its simplest level, that's just a testing question. Does the monk stop? Does the monk turn back? Does the monk pause? Does the monk keep going? What is the monk's resolve? What is the monk's understanding? Does the monk understand the question that he just asked? What is the way to Taizan? And where is the way in the identity of absolute, right? You're on the way even if you do not see it. I mean, it's right in our chant. Got the book. Anyway, you know that line, right? It's toward the end of the identity of relative and absolute. You're on the way. Even when you don't see it, you're on the way. Where is the way? Can somebody point to me where the way is? Yeah. Yeah. All good answers, right? It's ahead, it's right underfoot, says Deanne. Melissa says it's both ways, it's all around.
I was copying Ken.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always right here. It's always right here. So a fine monk like you going on like that again is a wonderful testing question. Where the hell are you going? Where are you trying to get to? What was that question? And there's nothing wrong with the question and nothing wrong with the answers. It's just, this is a teacher who happens to be a woman. This is a great teacher, just providing that push, that little shove, that swing of the sword that might help someone see it. You'll hear other koans on this. Tempio's two wrongs. A monk comes strutting in all full of nobody can show me anything, and Tempio sees him from a distance, and he calls his name, and he turns around, and Tempio goes wrong, and the guy takes a few more steps, and Tempio goes wrong, right? And the monk comes closer, and Tempio says, I just said two wrongs. Who is wrong? Was I wrong or were you wrong? And the monk says, I was wrong. And Tempio goes, wrong. Try presenting that koan to Roshi. It's like anything you do is wrong. But what's the point? It's like a fine monk like you going on like this again, testing. What's your understanding? Really, really wonderful. And what a great teacher this woman is. And actually, even though the language is a little hard to parse, Joshu does a pretty good job of honoring her by not coming back and tipping his hat to whether she was right or wrong, enlightened or not. He just let her stand. He, as a man, as the great master, did not give her approval or take it away. He left all these monks on top of their 100-foot poles so they could figure it out for themselves. Suppose I should look at it again and see if there's anything else. Dust, toil, demons, and heretics are utterly disposed of with a finger. The great earth, mountains, and rivers all become playthings. Tell me, what is this? This is talking about, the power of this great old woman. Everything becomes a plaything. This is the power that we all have, that you all have, by taking another step. By going, yeah, I'll be head trainee in April and May. Yeah, I'll leave my nice home here in you in Pasadena, I think? Pasadena, Altadena, somewhere up there, right, Deanne? I'll leave my home and go up and live on the monastery for 2 months. Real power. What state of mind is this? At the end of the Heart Sutra, gate, gate, para, gate, parasamgate, bodhisattva, all about passing to the other shore. And as Thich Nhat Hanh likes to tell us, the other shore is right under our feet. And yet we go swimming or rowing or wading or drowning or whatever we do in that water to get to the other shore. Great, great, really great teaching. And Grandma Zen, seen through and through, told to people it's not worth a cent, like as in a penny. Again, this point of she or I or Roshi or Bill or anybody can say, or Paul can say, it's right here, it's right under your feet. Just go straight ahead, just take another foot, just step off the pool. But telling it does no good. It's not worth a penny. Experiencing it, wow, Then we're back to the MasterCard ad, priceless. I think I'll stop there. It's probably enough Shiro rambling. And let's open it up for any questions that anybody has or observations or feelings. I hope you like the chant of the women's lineage. Those of you that were here. And again, welcome Karen and Kiri. It's great to have you with us. And Winston, thanks for popping in. And you're welcome at any time through the rest of the day as well. And Bill, I hope you're feeling better. Bill had his second vaccination, and that can be a doozy for some people. Anyway, happy to have everybody here. Any thoughts or questions? You can just unmute yourself or raise your hand. And if there are no questions, we'll just do more Zazen.
That'll be I have a thought, not a question, but a thought.
Yes.
And you might hear my dog snoring next to me if you hear something strange. But I really love this koan because I love the idea that anyone can be your teacher, whether it's someone that yells something at you on the street or Shiro or something on TV or someone that upsets you. When I approach life with the context of this person is my teacher, or this thing is my teacher, I surrender to it a little bit more, like it's good at getting me untriggered or kind of like off it a little bit. If I just think, all right, this is a teaching for me. And what is there to get out of what they're saying? Headed up the mountain, the monk, can't remember exactly what she said, but there's a lot of different ways you can interpret that. But if you think of her as that's she's a teacher, and the teaching is, how are you going to interpret it? What are you going to do? What's next? How are you going to take this? So, that's how it landed for me. And so I really love that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah.
Nice points. Thank you. Karen and then Deanne.
I'm just going to chime in. When I just was thinking about a different way, like sometimes when you're starting a project or when you're going to try something new, there's this inner critic inside too that can be telling you those same things. Oh, you're going to try to do that, or you don't know how to do that. It's, so I kind of was looking at it like, it's almost a voice inside too that can do that too. And I write poetry, or I start an art project, or I hesitate sometimes and I'm not confident, or I want to write a book, and so I get that kind of, but then I still go ahead and I do it. I still am taking those steps just to get there, to do it, even though I'm hearing that. And so I was looking at it like it could even be an inner voice that's telling you those things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then, as Melissa just said, it's how do you respond? Right. If that inner voice is a testing question of your resolve, and you just keep going, then that's a good teaching, right?
yeah.
And sometimes that inner voice can be a voice of great truth that you need to pay attention to. I think for any of us, especially when it's that inner voice questioning ourselves, I like what Kazumi said, is use it as a teacher rather than a judge. It's like, what is that? What do I do with that, rather than letting it shut you down as a self-judgment? And the same thing that as things happen in our lives, how do you use these challenges that present themselves? It is all teaching. Yeah, thank you, Karen. Deanne, I think you were reaching for the unmute.
Yeah, at first I was being kind of silly when you said, if there's no questions, then we'll do more Zazen. And my legs were like, raise your hand and ask a question. So I was just kind of struck too by how we always have this desire for someone to tell us what to do, and that someone else must know better than we do. But then paradoxically, our general experience, I should say my general experience, is somebody tells me what to do, I feel rebellious about that. How dare you tell me what to do? So which is it? Which is it, Shinzan? Do you want someone to tell you what to do? Or do you want someone not to tell you what to do?
Right. And what's working in both of those answers, Shinzan?
That's a koan in itself.
Right. But the question itself, where's that arising? Whether it's regardless of what side, or because you said, do you want to be told what to do, or do you not want to be told what to do? Right.
Yeah.
How much of that is real? Let's put it that way.
No, it's that delusion that someone else knows better.
Yeah, and even the questions are layering something on top of the experience.
Yes. And setting up a dichotomy.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a moment up at Yokoji months and months and months ago, but there was a young person who was considering a residency there, and we were doing work practice, and we hadn't quite finished a project, he and I, and I guess we had lunch, and after lunch was over, there's like a 2-hour break or something like that. And I went over and said, hey, we didn't quite get done. You want to take 10 minutes and let's go finish it. I'll go grab the tools and, let's finish it. And I just went down and grabbed the tools and started walking back up to the Zendo, right? As I'm coming back up from the Zendo, he's walking the other way, and he said, I'm not okay with that request. And that's it is what it is. I just kept going and swept what needed to be swept, but he just as easily could have grabbed the broom and swept. But he got caught in that exact conceptual thinking that you're describing. well, wait a minute. I don't want to do this. Why am I being asked to do this? Do I need to do this? Should I do it? Should I refuse? Took a lot more energy than just grabbing a broom, but so be it. More testing questions.
Yeah.
I'm a soulmate on Don't Tell Me What to Do. And I will say, I wish Gabriel were with us this morning because we were just talking about this. The practice for me really unlocked not needing to do that all the time. Not always needing to be in charge. Sometimes just being able to go, okay, I'll sweep. Okay, I'll clean the toilets. Okay, I'll light the incense. Okay, I'll fold the laundry. It doesn't have to be Zen related. Or at work sometime. Sometimes just doing it. It's been a great gift to me. And boy, in many ways, it's easier. Now I'm not saying, okay, I'll go kill that person, because there's other things that come into play. All right, talked a lot over your question. Is there anything else there that you want?
No, I just noticed the two things kind of going around inside of me, where sometimes I'm just begging somebody to tell me what to do.
Yeah. Well, you've got plenty of form. That's the other thing about practice, and the other thing about Shuso that you're going into. There's not really anybody telling you what to do, but there's a form, and that's what this practice is. Wait for the teacher to rise, and then you rise. Bow to your cushion. When you hear the clappers, bow, turn to the left. When you hear the clappers, start walking slowly with your hands in Shuso, Shashu. There's a lot of form. But the form is freedom. So, you've got a lot of that coming your way.
Yes.
And just let's relax into it. Relax into it. And know that we're all here. So I'm switching to gallery view just so I can check. Everybody here for Deanne as she goes into this training?
I am.
You got a whole sangha, Deanne. All right. We're all with you and rooting for you.
Thank you. I feel very grateful. Thank you, Shiro.
Thank you, Deanne. Mel? Soko? Where's your Roxu, Soko?
I was cold, so the sun is coming out. I will put it on. Yeah, you're telling me what to do, Dan. Dang.
I asked a question.
You did. You asked a question, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
I love that you honored the female teachers, the lineage. And I would say that, in my conscious, past, my teachers originally were women. First people who came to me to coach. And still, they're always in my ear, like I hear the teachings all the time. But one of the things when you were just talking about the koan, what made me think about is like, I have been the old woman on the road. And like, as I'm getting older, I feel more in kinship with this old woman on the road than I do with being in the monastery as a monk. And I would say that there's like practice there, because I'm an actor, if anyone doesn't know me, and I was cast in this show by an older woman director who is considered like one of the best directors in the Bay Area. And I was so excited to learn from her and get the coaching. And then a week before the production began, she left the job and a very young woman came in to direct. And I was feeling a lot of the time that whenever I would offer something, they would like, yeah, you old lady. That's an interesting, like that we know what we're talking about. So I felt like that old woman on the road that, the group wanted to go towards their enlightenment, and I am not honoring what I had to offer. So then I had to sit with my own ego around that. Like, wow, you don't want to hear my experience. It's not valued. So that's just like, when you were talking about that koan, to like get to that point where it's like, are you going to turn around and actually see that talking to me might be going to the monastery as well as going? So
Yeah.
I appreciated that perspective of it too, just in terms of my own, dealing with, oh, there they go walking, and I don't have to be upset by that. I'm just like, there they are on their way.
Yeah.
and be, not so edgy about it in myself.
Yeah, and of course, as I said, we need to bring all of these koans forward into a relevant context for our lives in this world. Okay. I suspect, Mel, that this woman was accomplished enough and seasoned enough, old enough, that she didn't really need them to turn around and acknowledge her. She's just teaching. So how does that relate to what you and I were talking about earlier?
It relates a lot. Oh my God, just the Beatles song is coming up, Live and Let Live. Live and
Although
let live.
you can still teach without demanding that acknowledgement that you're right.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's where we get caught. Everywhere we're just talking about how do you impart what you know is true. And part of the barrier is in the demand that the other person acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can let go of that demand, then your teaching is ever more powerful. Because, the person, the monk, the Texan, whatever they are, may go on, and they may go down the road, and they may go, God, this woman, he might use a different word, right? Just like, but you don't know at what soul level, cellular level, molecular level you've had an effect. And you have to let go of not knowing.
Yes, and what's interesting
Or
to
let
me
go of knowing. Let go of knowing.
is doing it, and then my own stridency, my own hooking in, my own like, oh, wake up, I'm so fucking impatient with you. So like, that's what needs to soften. So like, here's the thing, and we're cool.
Well, the anger can be really necessary, and that kind of energy is really necessary, but just don't turn it into, and you need to tell me that I was right and you were wrong. That's the part that really stops everything.
Okay.
It's that final twist that we put in there. And none of it's any good unless you say that you're wrong and I'm right. And then we get storming of capitals.
Yeah.
And the liberal response. So good. Sounds like Lori has something to say next to me.
Oh. How much time do we have?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, everything everybody's saying, I have had recent experience with. I'm in a creative industry, and I spent many years being a painter and a filmmaker and a photographer, working in the studio. And it's very, very much helped me as a creator to work with other people. I always wanted to do that, though being very sensitive, it was always really hard for me to sometimes go with the flow. But I have to say, it's really made my work so much better and so much more satisfying as an experience. I'm not talking about my work is better. That's really just for others to understand or not. But I mean, I feel like it contributes so much to have my ears open and to have my heart cracked every now and then, and have somebody, you know, say something that ends up really adding to the work. And I just that's the good thing about getting to be an old woman, is you learn how to hear, and you learn how to respond with that and flow with that. And I'm so grateful for this life and this practice. You know, it's given me so much with regard to that. Yeah, so that's what I have.
Thank you. And for those of you that are not used to this routine, Lori asks that she's not parked on camera all the time. You can see her in the far camera anyway. So yeah. Ken, yes.
Good morning. A long time ago, I used to work for a mass participatory sports marketing company. We put on marathons, walks, bike rides. And one of my jobs as a venue chief was painting directional arrows. And I was just wondering, Dan, that for your next race that you want to direct, you may not want to hire me, because the thought came that I would put 2 arrows meeting in midair all along the course. Either that, or I would paint directional arrows and have a finish line across each one. So that's what came up for me with
Nice.
Where is Mount Taizan? And she was the directional arrow.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well said. And thank you, Ken. And by the way, this man painting your directions all over the place will be leading yoga next. So limber up. Winston, I see you have your hand raised.
Hi, just a maybe contextual question. How do we know that the woman was being like mocking or condescending to the people asking, where's the mountain?
Well, I wasn't there, Winston, so it's a good question. In most of the literature, if you study this koan, that is brought up. But it's a fair point. So if she weren't a fine monk like you going on like that again, so then how would you work with that? Because that is another way to use these koans, is like to look at them from different sides. So what if it were not a testing question, then how would you see it?
Could she be complimenting them? Like, a fine monk like you, going on your way.
Yeah, she could. And if she were, what then?
Then it's a sign of encouragement. Keep going, keep doing your practice. I don't know.
Yeah, so you're on a really nice point, because part of this is it goes to the Tempio's Tu Rong koan, other koans like it, is this kind of question, whether it's an acknowledgement or a criticism. What do you do? Right? Do you turn back? Do you stop? Do you cock your head? Do you just keep going? Because it's up to you ultimately to what you do. There's another koan with Joshu, where he tests 2 hermits, and they're in their huts, and he says, is anybody in? And the hermit raises his fist, and he basically says the waters are too shallow here to moor, and moves on, which sounds like a criticism or in not a pass. And he goes to the next hermit's hut and says, is anybody in? And the hermit raises his fist in exactly the same way. And he heaps praise on him.
Yeah, I think it would be difficult to be criticized and then keep going forward. I mean, personally. But I think it takes a certain kind of strength, I guess, to keep going.
It depends on the nature of the criticism. I went in for Dokusan with Roshi one day and I forgot to bow. And he almost, well, see, I'm interpreting it as he barked at me. He just simply said, bow. And I backed out of that room and came back in and bowed and sat down and said, my name is Shiro and my practice is blah, 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 right? So again, it's how, like Kaizumi said, how do you work with this? How do you work with this? So whether it's praise or criticism, how do you work with it? The one clue to how the monk felt about it anyway is that he came back and said to Joshu, blah, 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 blah. And Joshu says, I'll go test her. Because that's just historically, there's a little hint in there anyway that the monk wasn't happy with it.
I see. Mm-hmm.
But there's thousands of years and translation and interpretation and all of this. So what you just did everybody see what he just did? He gave us another way to look at it, another way to test that. And that's really important. So thank you. Thank you. Mark, I think we can be a little fungible with time since we have a day.
No worries. I'll be short. So to kind of continue with what you were saying is what I find about these that I love so much is we're presented generally with this statement, right? Which is more of a prompt for investigation for me, which is it's so fluid where you could go, just like was just said. Well, was it encouragement or was it, were they mocking, and there's no, I'm given the freedom to learn the lesson that I'm supposed to learn from it or that exists in my practice.
Right.
Which is what I find so beautiful about the practice is that it's not like, here's the lesson, you need to arrive at B. It's here's your prompt. Let's walk you through it and see where you end up. And that's absolutely what I appreciate about that. And that came up just so much in this koan in this talk. So thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. And test these things for yourselves. Just because I'm wearing robes and go blah, 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 doesn't mean it's true for you. I mean, look, I'd be really honest. I'm using the koan to get to a certain place too. Right? I don't know how Joshu felt about the old woman. He didn't tell the monks or us. He just said, I've seen her through and through. But to me, it's important that he didn't give her a stamp of approval or disapproval. That's an important learning for me as a man in robes with the sangha of mixed gender. There's something for us all to learn. So yeah, bring it into your life and test it. And look, for those of you that aren't doing koan study and just run into these things on Sunday, just take them as stories, prompts, as Mark just said, a prompt for a question. Karen, a question of, well, what about when I hear that voice in my head? What do I do? You don't have to take them on as a Zen student and start working on 2,000 koans. They're prompts. At best, I am a prompt. At best, that's what this role is a prompt. Thanks, Mark. Carrie, gibberish? Okay, good. Bill, you good? All right. Well, we are at our next, where's the schedule? Or maybe I should just turn it over to Melissa. You're our coordinator. You tell me.
Actually, wait, Paul, were you about to say something?
Oh, it was just a thought. As some of you know, I'm a Jew who's enrolled in seminary school, and so I'm studying theology. And one of the courses I'm taking is a New Testament. And we went over the Gospel of Mark yesterday. And it's all about prompts. It's all about, okay, this doesn't make any sense. What do you make of it? And that's our professor, who's an esteemed New Testament historian. And she's telling us in many of the same words that we're using here, okay, there are contradictions here. What do you make of it? And it's all of this is just like windows and doors taking you to a different place. I just love the symmetry between the different disciplines. So thank you again.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for being with us today. Hasn't Paul been a great addition to the sangha? Yay! It's my best cheerleading act. All right.
Are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready.